Greetings from highlights from the
Good
Hebrew.
evening. I will be bringing you Sunday School highlights from the Faith Pathway Bible Studies Adult Series, Lesson 11, February the 11th, 2024. In the winter quarter study of our Sunday School lesson, we have been exploring faith that pleases God. Any person seeking God must believe that God exists and know that God rewards those who seek Him. In this quarter, we have been relearning about faith that pleases God. We've learned through profiles of faith, learning about faith, and we are in Unit 3, the righteous live by faith, understanding why it's important to have faith that pleases God in our lifestyle of faith today. Our lesson title is Worth Risking Our Lives. Our devotional reading comes from Isaiah chapter 43, verses 1 through 7. Our background scripture is Daniel chapter 3, verses 1 through 30. And our printed passage is Daniel chapter 3, verse 19 through 28a. Our key verse, Nebuchadnezzar spake and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who have sent his angels and delivered his servants that trusted in him. And that's Isaiah chapter 3, verse 28a, the King James Version. Our lesson aims for this lesson are as a result of studying this lesson, we should be able to do these things. Number one, recount how a faithful choice led to a new knowledge of God. And number two, appreciate difficult situations and opportunities for God to act in amazing ways. And then number three, consider ways your church might bear fruitful witness to God, especially in seamlessly hopeless circumstances. From our introduction, the courage for one to lay down his or her life for God is produced by an intimate relationship with God marked by obedience, prayer, study of his word. Approximately 600 years before Christ's advent, three young Hebrew exiles in Babylon demonstrated with faith that they put their lives at risk for faith. When challenged to deny God, they were willing to become martyrs rather than compromise God's command to worship Him only. They possessed a depth of faith for which they were willing to risk their lives for. The book of Daniel bears the name of the prophet who received revelation from God and served as significant administrative officer during Judah's entire 70 years in exile in Babylon. Kidnapped around age 15, Daniel was deported to Babylon to assimilate into the Babylon culture and to assist other import Jews. His outstanding godly character and service earned him the appointment of statesman and confidant to kings in Babylon and in the Persian empires. Jesus confirmed Daniel's authorship in Matthew chapter 24, verses 15. The book's purpose was to encourage the exiles by revealing God's plan for them during and after the time of the Gentile world powers. One of the book's significant themes is God's sovereign control over actions of earthly rulers and nation and the anticipation of the Messiah's future rule of the world. Daniel also focuses on God's sovereign use of miracles to display his superior power over earthly rulers. Daniel records two notable miracles, including his own deliverance from the lion's den in chapter 6, and God's supernatural protection of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in a blazing fiery furnace. Let's go into the analysis of our biblical context. There are two outlines presented in this lesson. The first one, faith's risk, Daniel chapter 3, verses 19 through 23. And the second outline, faith reward, Daniel chapter 3, verses 24 through 28a. Faith's risk, Daniel chapter 3, verses 19 through 28. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of his strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, their trousers, their turbans, and other clothing, they were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent, and the furnace was so hot. The flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to the furnace. And these men, tied firmly, fell into the blazing furnace. When the king had gathered together all his officials to dedicate this golden image he had created and to fall down and worship it, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not bow down. They knew their lives were in danger. Still, they made the right choice. A report came to the king in verse 12 that a certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. And the story continues in Daniel chapter 3, verses 13 through 15. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in a furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought in. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready, when you hear the sounds of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, well and good. But if you do not worship, you shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hands? Even with all of these threats and the rage of the king, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego remained faithful to God. They put their lives in God's hand. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they answered the king and said, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. And he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your God, nor worship the golden image that you have set up. The Hebrew boys' conviction, their beliefs against idolatry, their challenge of King Nebuchadnezzar's authority made the king extremely angry. Nebuchadnezzar is filled with anger. His facial expression, his attitude changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Nebuchadnezzar felt insulted. He resented their behavior toward him and decided that they would be thrown into the fiery furnace. He gave them the opportunity to save themselves. They refused. Now Nebuchadnezzar is going to make good on his threat to execute them by burning them alive. He ordered his servants to heat the furnace 7 times hotter than usually heated. This was unnecessary and just didn't make any sense, but it just goes to show how extremely angry Nebuchadnezzar was. And to further show how angry he was, Nebuchadnezzar, he only wanted certain brave and strong men from his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing fire for a crime of refusing to bow down to a golden statue. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into a fiery furnace. The soldiers didn't waste any time carrying out the king's order. The three boys were tied up. They were fully clothed, still wearing their pants, their shirts, their coats, their caps, whatever clothing they had on. The soldiers cast them into the fiery furnace. The intense heat of the furnace was so hot that it killed the Babylonian soldiers who were ordered to bound and cast these Hebrew boys into the fire. How does this lesson on faith risk matters? It matters because it uses these three young men's experience for the purpose of making it clear to us that God will allow, He will allow our faith to be tested under trials to see if our faith will take deeper roots and glorify Him. What helps our faith to take deeper roots? Well, daily watering, keeping it fresh and moist in our mind. And that is consistently, continuously reading and studying, which will cause the word to germinate, to begin to grow, and shoots come out. And then we will want to share, we will want to tell others about the salvation that only He can give. Our second outline, Faith Rewards, takes in Daniel chapter 3, verses 24 through 28a. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spoke and said unto his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said, True, O king. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men walking around loose in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the 4th is like a son of the gods. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of this burning fiery furnace, and spake and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High God, come forth, come hither. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth out of the midst of the fire. The princes, governors, and captains, and king's counselors being gathered together, they saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their heads singed, neither were their clothes changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them. Then Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who have sent his angel and delivered his servants that trusted him. Things are looking bad, but God didn't leave them by themselves. He didn't leave them alone. The extreme heat could have immediately consumed these 3 men. Nebuchadnezzar, standing at a distance off from the furnace, was greatly surprised by what he saw, that he had to confirm with his advisor the accuracy of what he saw. Nebuchadnezzar may have thought that his math was off. He saw 4 men walking around in the flame. They were not bound, and it appeared that the flames had not burned them. Nebuchadnezzar was so greatly surprised. This is how he described the 4th person in the fire. He said the 4th person looked like a son of the God. Who is this 4th man? An angel? All we know is that God didn't let them go through this alone. He was in there with them, right in that fiery burning furnace, walking with them. God was with them in their trials. The heat slacked off. It goes down enough for Nebuchadnezzar to go near the furnace opening. And he spoke, he shouted, he commanded, he uttered these words. He spoke, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither, come out of the fire. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. Our lesson today is on, and our unit, we have been dealing with faith, understanding what faith pleases God. So we see here that God did not leave Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego alone. God was there with them in the midst of these trials. God will be with us in our trials as well. So we just invite you to join us on Sunday morning as we go more in depth of this great lesson. We are located at 1215 South Schiller Street, Liberty Hill Missionary Baptist Church. Our Sunday school begins at 9:15 a.m. We look to see you then. Thank you.